I don't think that Ubisoft is going to survive the next decade. Now, as you all know, Ubisoft has been on the downtrend for a little while. You know, everyone's favorite company with the best UIs and the best game design, you know, balancing patches and all the other things like that. It's been on a massive downtrend as its stock went down from being 11 billion in 2018 to now 616 million. That's a 10.4 billion loss in just 8 years. Not to mention that their stock collapsed 33% in a single day, which is the worst single day loss since they went public in 1996. Even their employees don't trust them, and their leadership is honestly abysmal. Now, how has Ubisoft stayed afloat with these disgusting numbers? First of all, you have to talk about the games they've got that are going strong now. Currently, they're really just carried off of Assassin's Creed and Rainbow Six Siege. If you don't know what those games are, you should definitely check them out because, you know, on release and the older games when it comes to Assassin's Creed, they were really good, but these IPs are really just getting dry now. I mean, I don't know how many more Assassin's Creed games they can really release with the state that Ubisoft is in and keep them anything like what the old ones. And Rainbow Six Siege is going 10 years. They've had to restructure the game a few times. The balancing is awful at times. And their management of that game is just, I don't know if they switch managers every day or something like that, but they just decide to make the worst decisions one week and then some of the best decisions they've ever made another week. And it's really just, you can't really guess what they're doing in that game, but they're the games that are carrying, I mean, absolutely carrying Ubisoft. I believe Rainbow Six Siege is around worth 4 billion and the Assassin's Creed franchise is around worth 3.5 billion. You know, they make a lot of money for Ubisoft. But Ubisoft is just throwing it down the bin with their management. I mean, the only reason the game is alive is because of a fiercely loyal community. I mean, I used to play the game a lot, but it's just a dying game. It's just getting worse and worse and worse with every update. And what was supposed to fix the game, you know, Siege X, I think it was just overhyped. It didn't seem like that good of an update. That's really enough about Siege. Right? One of Ubisoft's worst things is their dead games. They cancel a lot of games, right? So let's just go through a list of the games that they've, you know, cancelled and try and go through the most, you know, popular games that they've cancelled. First of all, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, a remake that was announced in 2020 for 2021. It's just been shuffled between studios for years and ended up getting cancelled this year. I mean, a Splinter Cell remake, which is very beloved, by the way. Splinter Cell, I mean, a lot of people will be looking forward to that, but it was announced in 2021 and it was never seen again. A Division game, another Tom Clancy's game, it was announced in 2021, cancelled. A Ghost Recon game was announced in 2021, cancelled. And there's been no Far Cry, which is one of their other IPs that makes quite a lot and it's pretty beloved, since 2021. I mean, if you just look at 2021 alone, it seems like an awful year to be, you know, a fan of what Ubisoft does and all their IPs and games. Now, one of the biggest offenders is actually Skull and Bones. I've mentioned this in another video, but it was a decade in development and it released in 2024, just some mid reviews and basically no one playing it. You know, they had so many things that just try and get players, you know, free trials, etc, etc. It cost them over 800 million and I bet they didn't even make half of that back. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this game is, but apparently it was announced in 2008 and it still has no release date. So it's safe to say that that game just got abandoned without saying anything else. X-Defiant was like a Call of Duty sort of competitor that just never even properly made it. You know, it shut down after 7 months and it was just abysmal on release. I mean, their own executive producer said that on shutdown day, they had crippling tech debt, an engine not designed for what they were building, and content that wasn't even enough for a proper launch, which is pretty insane to say from Ubisoft, which should be a pretty big company, but now it's just in the gutter and it's barely even bigger than a lot of indie companies, you know, mid-sized indie companies to be fair. And if you're enjoying this video so far, then make sure to like and subscribe so that I know that this type of video is very helpful. Thank you very much. Now, there were a lot of scandals with Ubisoft, especially with The Crew. I mean, they shut down The Crew servers and revoked people's licenses. The game was completely unplayable for people who would pay for it. You know, if you look at the Stop Killing Games campaign, I mean, this is the exact stuff that a lot of them are talking about, and there were no refunds for that. Apparently, a Ubisoft director of subscriptions publicly said that they want players to get comfortable with not owning their own games, which is pretty crazy because if I spend a lot of money, let's say a game's £60, right, which are a lot of games are these days, especially AAA games. If I spend £60 on a game and I don't even own that game and they can take that game from me away, you know, at any point they decide that they just want to take it away from me and I had nothing to say, I can't, because I'm sure there's some sort of agreement somewhere. That's where you got to start reading these things. There's some sort of agreement that just lets these companies do these stuff, but maybe not in this case, since they did get a class action lawsuit and it was directly influencing California, which passed a new law that required digital storefronts to disclose when you're buying a license rather than a product, which is a good thing. But the fact that you can buy a game and just have it completely taken away, like, I can kind of get it for games that are 30 years old, right? But there should at least be ways to play those games, you know? Obviously, a company's not going to want to run a server that's, you know, has 3 people playing on it, you know, an old game that people just come back for nostalgia every now and again. Why would they spend all that money just running a server that almost no one is going to play? I get that. But a game that's not even that old that people are still playing and you're still just removing the player licenses, like, that's pretty insane to think about. And the thing is that Ubisoft has a lot of restructuring. I mean, it had 2 restructurings in a year with loads of strikes being called because their employees are treated absolutely awfully. If a game doesn't do too well, or if something doesn't do too well, then the CEO, apparently he sends emails to staff implying the failures were their fault and asks them to be frugal, which is pretty insane to do. Not only that, he seems extremely corrupt. If you look at this guy for, I mean, 2 seconds and look at what he's done in this company, it's just insanely corrupt. Apparently his son was promoted despite having no qualifying experience, and he's now co-chief of the subsidiary holding Ubisoft's most valuable assets, which is insane. He has no experience. I mean, if that isn't corruption, I don't know what is. I mean, there's also this massive Tencent situation went on with Ubisoft. There were a lot of bailouts and there were shareholders getting their stock diluted and stock crashes. And apparently that Tencent is actually acquiring Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six, which is, you know, pretty insane. I did know that Rainbow Six did get, you know, starting to get handled by a subsidiary around the launch of Siege X. So, you know, a lot of players were skeptical, you know, will they bring good updates? I mean, they say they're always trying to improve and listen to the players, but it doesn't seem that way. I'm not 100% sure about the newest Assassin's Creed game, but the parkour in a lot of the ones just hasn't been what it used to be, you know. It doesn't feel like the old Assassin's Creed used to feel like Assassin's Creed 2. I mean, Assassin's Creed Unity had a really nice feel to it. I mean, that game was insane. But now Ubisoft is just awful. I mean, all of this stuff, and I haven't even mentioned their app. You know, the UI, you have to use it when you're playing Siege. I mean, it just has a bunch of bloat, and it is just so inefficient to use. You know, I don't see a single reason why you would actually use Ubisoft's, you know, app if it wasn't required, because it is pretty much just useless. The only things you might get, for example, in Siege, I mean, you get a few skins here and there. You know, you don't get any deals, you don't get nothing. You know, you can see your playtime. Like, okay, cool, I'm playing the game through Steam. I can see that anyway. You know, there's not really any point in this Ubisoft app, and a lot of the time it just has issues. The app is down, or you can't invite someone for some stupid reason because Ubisoft servers are awful. It's just not good. As I've already said, I mean, there are 6 games cancelled, 7 games were delayed, and it's a projected $1 billion loss. I mean, some of their games, like Assassin's Creed, it performs well on launch. And it briefly, you know, gets them that good look again, but it doesn't fix anything that's going on beneath. You know, they might get a good game here and there, you know, but they're just going to be milking the same franchises, and eventually it's just all going to dry up. I mean, it's the same point I made earlier. I mean, they're worth less than a lot of, you know, mid-size indie publishers. That's insane for a company like Ubisoft, which has been around for ages. I mean, they have made a lot of games that people love, but they are just an awful company who treat their workers awfully, who treat their games even worse somehow, and I just don't see how they survive past 2036. I mean, if we look at Ubisoft in 2036, I don't expect to see them anywhere, or I expect to see them on the brink of bankruptcy, or bought by someone else into a, you know, and they become a subsidiary of a company. You know, they just become something different. I don't see the Ubisoft brand or Ubisoft anything surviving the next decade, because the rot, it's just awful. It's just, you can't look at the company in any good light. I mean, one of Siege's biggest drawbacks is the fact that this ran through Ubisoft, and I think that says enough. But what do you guys think? Do you think Ubisoft will be here in a decade? If you do, comment below why. If you don't, comment below why, and subscribe so you can see more content. Thank you very much.